I'm a 32-year-old woman who recently endured a traumatic car accident. About 2 weeks ago, while driving home from work, another vehicle slammed into the side of my car. The impact was so severe that my vehicle flipped over. Paramedics later told me I was incredibly lucky to have survived. I required urgent surgery for internal injuries, 2 fractured ribs, and a badly injured leg. I spent a week in the hospital recovering, grappling with both physical pain and emotional turmoil. Being in the hospital was overwhelming, and all I wanted was for my parents to visit me when I regained consciousness. I didn't expect them to stay the entire time, but even a brief visit would have meant the world. Instead, they were nowhere to be found for days. I kept hoping for a call or a visit, but nothing came. It wasn't until 4 days after the accident that I received a single text from them. I later confirmed that the hospital, where my parents are listed as my emergency contacts, had reached out to them multiple times. The staff informed me that my parents were notified the day after I was admitted, yet they seemed indifferent about my condition. This hurt deeply, but I tried to rationalize it, thinking they might be caught up with something urgent. Thankfully, my belongings, including my phone, survived the crash, so I texted them every few hours. Still, I got no response. Each day in the hospital felt like a nightmare, and while I tried to give my parents the benefit of the doubt, their absence made it harder to cope. Fortunately, friends from out of state contacted some nearby relatives, so I wasn't entirely alone. On the 6th day, a family friend visited and casually mentioned how wonderful it was that my brother was being honored at an awards event. Confused, I asked for details, and she was shocked that I didn't know. Apparently, my parents had chosen to attend my brother's awards ceremony instead of visiting me in the hospital. They knew I was recovering from a life-threatening accident, but prioritized his moment of glory over supporting me. They were so focused on preparing for his event that they didn't bother contacting me. Their concern was more about how his achievement reflected on them than about their daughter's survival. To clarify, I'm not envious of my brother. I recognize his talent and hard work, and I understand why they'd be proud. But the issue is that he's always been the favored child. Growing up, he was constantly praised while I was overlooked. He now holds a high-profile job at a major company, and this award was a big deal for him. But I was recovering from surgery after nearly losing my life. A simple visit or phone call would have been enough to show they cared. Instead, they didn't even acknowledge my situation. I felt betrayed and humiliated. I tried to justify their actions but couldn't. So, I decided to confront them. I sent a message expressing my hurt and disbelief that they chose my brother's event over my well-being. For the first time since the accident, they responded quickly, but their words only deepened my pain. They initially tried to excuse their absence, saying my brother's award was a rare milestone they couldn't miss. I pointed out that they could have visited me earlier and still attended his event. Eventually, they stopped defending themselves and said it was pointless to visit me when my brother was making the family proud. Those words cut deeper than I can describe. It felt like I was an afterthought, as always. This wasn't new. My brother has always been the golden child. Every achievement of his, scholarships, prestigious jobs, perfect grades, was celebrated while I was ignored. Even when I succeeded, it was never enough. My mistakes were treated as catastrophes, and I never received the same support he did. It felt like they had already decided I was a disappointment, and nothing I did could change that. A week after my brother's ceremony, my parents finally showed up at the hospital. I wasn't surprised to see their forced smiles and flowers in hand. They tried to ask about my recovery, but their distraction was obvious. I told them to get to the point, as I could sense their visit wasn't about concern. Their lack of care during my ordeal was already insulting enough. I didn't need their fake sympathy. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. My mother broke down, revealing that my brother had been arrested for fraud at his company. He had been siphoning funds into personal investments by manipulating company records. After a coworker tipped off the higher-ups, an investigation led to his arrest, and he now faces serious charges like embezzlement, forgery, and wire fraud. My parents had already spent most of their money hiring lawyers for him. They came to me because they needed funds to cover his bail and asked if I could use my savings from my job as a project manager at an IT firm. They also wanted me to pull strings through any connections I might have. It felt like I was just a resource to fix my brother's mess, not their daughter. Still reeling from the accident, I was stunned they'd ask this of me after everything. It was like a punch to the gut. They didn't care when I was fighting for my life, but now that their precious son was in trouble, they needed me. Part of me felt guilty, wondering if I should help for the sake of family, but another part was furious. Why should I bail out the brother who's always had everything handed to him? My parents have always shielded him from consequences, and now they expected me to do the same. I told them no. I said I wouldn't help, even if I had the means, and reminded them they hadn't bothered to check on me. They called me selfish, insisting family should stick together. They warned I'd regret not helping, but I didn't care. For once, I felt in control, and I wasn't going to let them guilt me into submission. I've spent too long seeking their approval, and I'm done. First update, thank you all for the support on my original post. It gave me the strength to stand my ground. I didn't expect to update so soon, but a lot has happened. I was discharged from the hospital a few days after my parents' visit. I'm managing with crutches due to my leg injury, and breathing is still painful as my ribs heal. I was eager to return home and find some calm amidst the storm. But that hope vanished when I saw my parents waiting outside my apartment. They must have contacted the hospital to learn my discharge time, as I hadn't shared it. They didn't waste a moment before confronting me. They were furious, accusing me of crossing a line by refusing to help my brother. It was the angriest I've ever seen them. They seemed more upset with me than with my brother's fraud. They lectured me about family loyalty, calling me spiteful and selfish. They even suggested I was using this to get back at them for favoring my brother. They didn't care that I was still recovering from a near-fatal accident. To them, I was just an obstacle to saving their golden child. They had the nerve to say this was my chance to prove I wasn't a disappointment and to show I belonged in the family by doing the right thing. It was absurd. They admitted I wasn't truly part of the family unless I helped my brother. Things escalated when I reiterated my refusal. My mother sobbed at my doorstep, shouting that they'd already lost one child and were now losing me, and that I was punishing them for loving him more. My father grew angrier, calling me heartless and saying I'd regret abandoning the family. I could barely stand on my crutches, exhausted from the hospital, yet they kept berating me. I stood firm, threatening to call the police if they didn't leave. I made it clear I wouldn't pay a cent for my brother's bail or legal fees. They eventually left, but not without more insults. A few days later, my brother's case hit the news. The fraud was bigger than I'd thought. Police found evidence he'd been diverting funds for over a year, some laundered through fake accounts in his name. They also discovered he helped colleagues hide their own embezzled funds, leading to additional charges of conspiracy and money laundering. If convicted, he could face significant prison time. The fallout has been intense. My parents are panicking. After years of boasting about my brother's success, his reputation is ruined. My father even lost a major client when news of the scandal broke. They're struggling to spin this as a misunderstanding, but no one's buying it. Desperate, they came back to me begging for help just this once to save the family. They said helping my brother would fix everything, but I knew they meant protecting their image and covering up his mistakes. I said no again, and they've gone silent since. It feels like they've written me off as a lost cause who betrayed the family. But honestly, I don't care anymore. For the first time, I feel empowered. It hurts to know my parents only saw me as a backup plan, someone to use when things went wrong. But saying no feels liberating. I won't help my brother or let them manipulate me into fixing their mess. They need to face the consequences of their choices. Second update, things have gotten messier, and I wanted to share an update. My brother reached out via email, sent through a friend since he can't access a phone in jail. I almost deleted it, assuming it was another guilt trip. But curiosity got the better of me, and I read it. He claimed he was framed, admitting he was involved in the fraud but insisting he wasn't the mastermind. He said higher-ups used him as a scapegoat to cover their own crimes, and while he's stuck taking the fall, those executives are still free. He begged for my help, not for our parents, but to save the family from falling apart. That line struck a nerve, especially when he acknowledged how our parents have mistreated me and used him to boost their egos. It was strange to see him admit that, as he's always gone along with their favoritism. But I couldn't shake the feeling he was just saying what he thought would sway me. His plea about saving the family echoed my parents' words too closely. Still, I wondered if there was truth to his story. Was he really set up? I needed to know. I consulted a trusted lawyer friend who, while not involved in the case, pointed me toward public records. After digging, I found my brother's claims weren't entirely baseless. He was indeed involved in the fraud, but it seems he wasn't the main orchestrator. Higher-level executives had been siphoning funds for years and used my brother, who managed certain accounts, as a fall guy. They kept their hands clean while he took the blame. I'm conflicted. I'm angry he got involved in something so shady, fully aware of what he was doing. He likely thought he'd never get caught. But I also feel a twinge of sympathy. It's clear he was manipulated by savvier executives who knew how to cover their tracks. I can't help but think our parents' constant coddling made him believe he was untouchable. When I shared this with my parents, they were oddly quiet. I think they know he's not innocent but refuse to admit it. Instead, they doubled down, calling me selfish for not helping and accusing me of abandoning the family. Talking to them was like hitting a brick wall. I've decided to cut contact entirely. My brother made his choices and my parents enabled him. I'm not responsible for cleaning up their mess, especially when they wouldn't do the same for me. I feel more at peace than I have in years. I know I made the right call even if my family disagrees. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. Thank you all for your support. It's been a lifeline. Third update, it's been over a month since my last update, and I have more to share. When my parents realized guilt-tripping me wouldn't work, they took a different approach, spreading lies about me. They called aunts, uncles, and cousins, painting me as selfish and spiteful for not helping my brother. They made it sound like I was hoarding wealth out of malice, conveniently leaving out how they abandoned me in the hospital. I only learned about this when a cousin reached out, revealing how my parents were bad-mouthing me. They twisted the story to make me the villain, ignoring their neglect. At first, I was devastated, feeling punished for standing up for myself. I thought I'd be isolated with no one on my side. But something unexpected happened. Instead of siding with my parents, several relatives contacted me to offer support. It turns out my parents' favoritism toward my brother and mistreatment of others had alienated many family members over the years. I was unaware of how deep this went. Relatives shared stories that shocked me. One aunt said my brother borrowed a large sum from her husband for a failed business venture. When she tried to recover the money, my parents cut her off and called her greedy. Another cousin revealed how my brother once blamed a car accident on a parking attendant at a family event, and my parents backed him up, accusing the victim of trying to tarnish his reputation. There were more stories, business deals ruined, relatives sidelined, all because my parents prioritized my brother's image. It was validating to realize I wasn't alone in feeling mistreated. My parents have a history of protecting him at all costs, even at the expense of others. As for why they were so desperate for my help, it's because I've built a solid life despite their neglect. As a project manager at a reputable IT firm, I've saved money and cultivated strong connections. They knew I had the resources, which is why they pushed so hard. But they didn't count on me refusing to help people who have always treated me as lesser. On my brother's case, my parents eventually scraped together enough money through loans and favors to post his bail. But the investigation continued. A few weeks ago, he chose to cooperate with authorities, providing information on the executives involved in the fraud. This earned him a reduced sentence. 1 year in prison followed by community service instead of a longer term. I'm glad he's taking responsibility, but it doesn't erase his initial choice to participate. I doubt this will change him. He'll likely expect my parents to keep bailing him out. I've cut off all contact with my parents permanently. They're blocked on every platform, and I've instructed my building's front desk to bar them from entry. I'm tired of being their fallback, scapegoat, or emotional punching bag. Surprisingly, I don't feel sad about it. I thought losing my family would hurt, but it feels freeing. The relatives who reached out have been amazing. They've shown me I'm not alone, and for the first time I feel supported. Many have invited me to family gatherings my parents won't attend, and one aunt apologized for not speaking up sooner about their behavior. She's become one of my biggest allies, along with others. I'm excited to reconnect with these relatives and build new bonds. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm hopeful. Your support and comments have been invaluable, helping me see I'm not wrong for prioritizing myself. It feels incredible to finally take control of my life. Thank you for following my story.